Hey guys, welcome back to whatever this is, and on today's episode, we're just going to talk about the end of an era for Canadian TV. Growing up in Toronto, in the Toronto area, I should say. You know Canadian culture, and as of the recording of this, the station that is TeleToon is going away. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to come on here and talk about how in Canada we're losing TeleToon, which is a children's programming station that I used to watch a lot as a kid. It was like that, YTV, and Discovery were like my three main jams. And losing TeleToon is just more of, it was the Canadian approach to what Cartoon Network was. And it was really good on how they would support Canadian content in animation, whether it was animated in Toronto, the voice work was done in BC, it would count as Canadian content. So a lot of them would get like really unique with how they would do that, and this was a big station that really had a big impact in my life growing up on shows I watched and influences like a lot of my taste. Like, I still remember the day TeleToon first came on air. I came back from school. Me and my brother were really excited because we could watch the Donkey Kong Country cartoon show. We grew up Sega, as I've already stated, but we did like Donkey Kong Country. We did play it at our friend's house. It was fun, so we were really excited to be like, oh, Donkey Kong's got a cartoon show. Sonic had one. Donkey Kong, let's go. And then the intro hits, and it is amazing. If you have listened to it, it is one of the best intros ever done. I think we all can agree on that. As of hey yo, that was a really good intro, and the show wasn't great. I just remember like they would have musicals in the middle of the episodes. It was weird. It was a good show, I guess, at the time. Like, I kind of fell off with it really quickly because I just couldn't handle the amount of like really bad songs that came out of it. Like, I don't even see people genuinely being like, oh, these songs were like this odd song here and there's no, just everyone seems to be unanimously like they're really bad except for the intro. The intro goes like a little too hard with TeleToon, and that was like my first introduction to TeleToon. I think they were probably showing Scooby-Doo or something, but I really wasn't paying attention. I watched Donkey Kong, and then I remember staying up late and watching like their first late night programming because I think my parents went out and I was like in grade 4, so I stayed up all night. And this was a show that came on that influenced my taste, even obviously to today. And it was the first time I had watched Dragon Ball Z. As I got really excited when I was going through the TV guide at the time and seeing like, oh, they got all these shows, and then we hit Dragon Ball Z, and my brother's like, that's stupid, and it's on at midnight, and I'm like, I really want to watch it. So I just managed to keep myself up, and I watched it and thought it was really cool. And then I think I saw the odd episode here and there. And then years later, Dragon Ball like airs on YTV at like this really weird AM time, and and that started Dragon Ball. But my first introductory to it was actually a few years, like at least a year before anyone else really started paying attention to it, and it was those first early Ocean dub episodes, which was really awesome. And like, it's stuff like that with this station. I think about that and I'm like, yeah, this is where a lot of my taste came from. If there was one thing on the ball that TeleToon was really, really good at, it was their late night programming. Their late night programming was easily some of the best animation, maybe even to today, for like, a TV station. So this is where I got introduced to a lot of shows. I'm going to kind of do a cut here where I'm just going to voice over shows that people said that they watched. I'm going to talk about specifically a couple that I watched, about 4, but I do want to have this cut here where I'm just going off about shows that were on there and what my impressions of them were. But this is a big station to kind of just fade away. It makes sense for it to fade. It just doesn't make sense to have this type of TV station anymore, especially with streaming services. But it did have an impact on a lot of us.
All right, getting into the quick rapid fire round. Daigata Defenders. Honestly, I was too old to watch this show by the time it came out. Braceface, really good show for 2000s animation, and like really went out there sometimes. Captain Star, this was Generation 1 Teletoon. I know it's a Star Trek ripoff, not my bag. Delta State, honestly, cool concepts, but just never could hold my attention. Sons of Butcher, music was cool. The facial animation, because they superimposed it, looked really weird. Had to destroy your childhood within one episode. John Callahan's Quads, I swear the show would not get made today. No. Totally Spies, very important to many people. Teletoon was one of the powers behind it. Most of these shows that I talk about today can be watched on YouTube, no problem.
You are now entering TeleToon Unleashed. Watch till your jaw drops.
So the first show I'll talk about was, I think it was the first big one that really made people like pay attention to what was going on in Teletoon, and that was the show called Undergrads. It was a main character about nits. He, went to college or university. I'm going to assume university. And it was just the adventures of him and his friends in university. And, like, they had an entire episode where, like, the problem was, the nerd character Gimpy was fighting with another guy on the floor, and they had to win the floor by having a Quake fight over which was better, Star Wars or Star Trek, because that was a thing at the time, and it was really funny. And it was just a really dumb, immature show, but it was enjoyable. And that show, I kid you not, aired in Canada for at least 10 years.
Next on TeleToon Unleashed, Undergrads. TeleToon, it's unreal.
It may not have actually been 10 years, but that show basically aired from, like, whenever they picked it up until, I think, like, the late aughts or just, like, early 10s. Like, I don't know when it left, but I know it was there for, like, ever. Everybody would put it on at parties, be like, oh yeah, Undergrads, and then just everyone accepted it, but everyone watched it like a million times. Easily a great bingeable show. The second one, it's getting a sequel. The second one is Clone High. If you have ever seen the Lego movie, the Batman movie, Into the Spider-Verse, these are the same writers, worked on those projects, worked on Clone High. This is some of the most clever history jokes in a show. There's one gag where Abraham Lincoln's questioning, like, what he's to do with his life. And there's a picture of him in the background being assassinated. The entire show's basis is literally is that they dug up a bunch of historical people and they cloned them. And now they're teens, sexy teens now. They're going to make it if they try. And that's the entire show. It is just a high school drama, but all the characters are based off historical characters. Genghis Khan, Gandhi is probably one of the best characters in the entire show. Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, JFK, Cleopatra. It's just this wonderful group of cast of characters where, like, they don't need to be these historical figures, but it kind of makes it funnier that way. And it was a really good show. Got one season, 13 episodes, aired for a really, really long time. And just people loved it. I loved it. I think it was one of the best shows they aired for a while. Always hoping for more episodes. But we never got that very special second season. But that actually is happening recently, and that is a good thing. The next show I wanted to talk about was Cyber 6. Cyber 6 was a wonderful show. It was about a character who was genetically manipulated by a mad scientist, and now she needs to, like, kill his monsters and drink vials that they turn into in order to live. It's kind of an out there concept. It's really good, though. I know the comics get really wonky. I never read them. I heard some things here and there, but I know it's really good. And this was considered Canadian content, too, because it was voiced by Canadians. So it was, like, animated. It's like a Belgian comic. I'm probably wrong on the origin of that. If I'm correct me down below, sorry. That was then animated in Japan and then voice acted in English in North America. I don't know. It was a good show. I really liked it. It, again, only had 13 episodes. I watched that show on, like, constant repeat. It is a show I do want on DVD at some point. It won a lot of animation awards. Unfortunately, the show just didn't go anywhere after that, but, like, it did air for a long time in Canada, And I do know they tried to air it in the States, and they had to edit it a lot. Hopefully I did that show justice. It's a lot. It's really good. It is primarily like you have a female main character as the hero who has to disguise herself as a man during the day as a school teacher in order to keep their identity secret. And like as a kid, that just didn't register what was going on. And I'm like, I don't know. They beat up the big monster. Cool. Me watch again. And there's a lot of people. This is a very important character to me. It is a great show, and you really should watch it if you haven't. If you're missing out on a great show. The next show on TeleToon that I 100% have to mention is the one you may have noticed in the background. Card Captors. This was how Canadians ended up watching this entire show. This show was one of the few animes that they picked up, and it was aired all the time once they did. Like, I remember when I was in high school, they were actually airing this at like 4 in the morning. And what I would do is I would watch the West Coast channel through my digital cable box, and I would catch it at 7 in the morning when they would be airing the reruns. And the neat thing with the reruns with Card Captors is it actually was put in proper order. Not a lot of shows, especially anime at that time, the fact that this was first chopped up, it was then edited out of order to air out of order, that somebody at TeleToon must have loved it a great deal to actually go through their archives of their episodes and then actually reorganize them and put them in their proper order. Like, that is dedication. Like, whoever like picked this up really loved it who worked there, because that's incredible. I don't even think any station in the US did that who picked it up. Like, phenomenal. This was also the first time so TeleToon obviously also had, because it's Canada, there was a French version. That French version was really kind of a hot moment for me for like a hot second, where I was kind of just bouncing between the English and the French for whatever reason. I guess, I don't know, I was like 12. Seemed like a great idea at the time. So I'm bouncing between the two. And like this scene shows up where her older brother, I believe, was talking to the teacher saying that they knew what was going on with Sakura and that they needed to keep a guard on her going forward. And then like Yue showed up, and that wasn't in the dub. That wasn't in the English dub, I should say, but it was in the French dub. So that was the first time that I knew that like something was amiss. Something was wrong with what I was watching. And after seeing that, I started shortly after picking up fan subs. Whether they be right or wrong, doesn't matter. But that was the influence, like, of kind of having that show air in 2 languages in the same country, and you kind of catch on that, like, something with the English translation is not right. And that's why Card Captors was kind of one of those big kid moments where you're like, oh my god, I'm missing things. But yeah, I love Card Captors. TeleToon aired it all the time. I watched it all the time. And a great show that Canadian television definitely deserved. The last show I did want to talk about, I think, is one of the more important shows that was on TeleToon at the time. And that was a show by the name of 16. I'm not sure how many of you ended up watching this. It was just, 16-year-olds in a mall, working jobs, and just growing up. It was a really good show that tackled a lot of things that, like, not a lot of shows would tackle, especially in the animation, such as girls getting their periods, or guys coming off as creepy, or just stuff like that. And, like, they did some out there scenarios. And for a kid's show, I always think back once in a while, or catch an episode here or there that when it's on a rerun, and you're like, wow, I can't believe they got away with that. And it's awesome. The best part is some of those episodes are their best episodes they ever produced. Where, like, some of the more, like, risque episodes, because by Canadian standards, hey, this is something, the demographic is going for needs to know about. Where in the States, they would just censor it out. So, unfortunately, the US never got the best episodes. And it was good. Like, this show was really good. It's one that's really funny just to watch. Like, I always remember that the cop was like kind of a bad Christopher Walken impersonation, and it worked. It worked really well for like the environment that the show created. I always assumed it took place in like the Edmonton Mall or something because the place is just so big. They just make up stores. Like, it's just massive. And it was just such a clever, unique show to have for teenagers on their station. And I always watched it. I even remember one of the last shifts I worked at a job I was working, because I just didn't want to work at that facility anymore. And it was just a slow night, and when it was slow, you could watch the TV. And I caught the last episode, and it was one of those shows where I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed it, and like, I caught the last episode, and I didn't know it was like the finale starting it. And it ended really well. It did so much respect for the characters. I've met most of the voice actors, and even to this day, they all say it's like one of their most favorite shows they ever worked on. And it was put out there by TeleToon. It was produced by TeleToon. All these shows had some backing by TeleToon, or it was just an anime significant show to me. Dragon Ball, that was Canadian because of the Ocean Group dub. This was also done in BC, so it counted as Canadian content. Cyber 6, Canadian content, voice work. And 16, complete Toronto. As far as I'm aware, like, all of that was done in Toronto. Just, it's the voice for animation in Canada. It'll be missed. It just doesn't make any sense to keep it around anymore, and I understand that. And it's just, I want people to know that some of these shows exist. If I can just get one pair of eyes on like one or two, hey, awesome. That's what this video is for, guys. Or if I made you even just remember one of these shows. That's it for this week's episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for a bit of delays. I've kind of come up with a new filming routine, so hopefully that'll get all of this back on track. But anyways, guys, take care. Have a good one. And thanks, TeleToon, for all the memories. Take care.